I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here in the Hub Culture Pavilion, very pleased to be joined by Alison Gopnik. She's professor of psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, near my hometown. Now, we all know about the Turing test. There's another Turing test that you've been doing some work on recently about getting a computer to design to think like a child. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, actually, in the very first paper that Alan Turing wrote, the famous paper where he said that you could try and figure out whether a computer was really intelligent or not many people know that in that very same paper he said, but the real test wouldn't so much be if you could act like an adult. The real test would be if you had a computer that was like a child. So could you have a computer that would start out not knowing very much about the world and really learn? And as usual, Turing was a genius. It was very prescient because it turns out that that ability to learn is one of the biggest things that computers are starting to have. And what we've been doing in my lab at Berkeley is collaborating with people in computer science and trying to figure out how young children, who are the best learners we know of, how do they learn so much? Is that something that computers could use? And can computer learning tell us something about what could be going on in those little computers inside of their brains?
So what have you found out? How do babies learn? How do children learn?
Well, one of the interesting things about AI is that some of the things that we thought were going to turn out to be very simple turn out to be very hard, and vice versa. So one way that babies and children learn is by looking at statistics, looking at the very complicated statistical patterns in the world around them and pulling out those statistical patterns. And that's a way that computers learn too, and that's been the source of a lot of the recent advances in learning and artificial intelligence. But babies also do other things that are different from the kinds of things that computers can do. So even very young children, 3 or 4-year-olds, seem to be able to creatively think up new ideas about how the world could work. And in some work that we've done, we've shown that 4-year-olds can actually be better at that than grown-ups, than Berkeley undergraduates are. They're very good at thinking of things that are sort of out of the box, that are creative. And the interesting problem is when you try and think out of the box, how do you know which place out of the box to go to?
Right.
And that's a problem that computers haven't solved, and we don't really know how children are solving. Somehow they get wild, crazy ideas, but they're good, wild, crazy ideas instead of stupid, wild, crazy ideas, at least a lot of the time.
Right. Children are obviously influenced by their parents and their surrounding. So does that translate to computers as well?
Well, that's another piece that makes the way that children learn different from the way computers learn, at least now. So children turn out to be, literally from the time they're born, learning from the other people around them in a very special way. So we seem to be designed to get information from other people. Even newborn babies, literally newborn babies, imitate what they see other people around them doing. And by the time children are 2 or 3, they're constantly taking in information from what they observe in other people and what other people tell them. But they do it in a very fine-grained way. They don't just do it in a sort of automatic, mindless way. So 3 or 4-year-olds will act differently depending on whether they think that someone knows what they're doing or is just fooling around, or whether someone is trying to teach them or is just exploring themselves. So already children are learning from other people in this very sophisticated way, and somehow, in ways we don't quite understand, figuring out how to learn from other people. Now, one of the interesting things about the advances in machine learning recently is that the machines are also learning from other people. So part of the reason why computers can do things now like recognize internet images is because millions of human beings have already gone through and picked out the best images. So in a way, computers too are learning from other people, but it's a much simpler way. The computers aren't rolling their eyes when someone puts up a cat picture and saying, "Oh, forget about that one. Don't want to learn from that person."
Right. Interesting. Alison, thank you so much for stopping by the Hub Culture Pavilion here in Davos. I'm Edie Lush.
You're welcome.